Hi, everyone. Jim Petruzzi here, Graywolf, coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. I was out this morning walking among some of the cactus and gathering firewood for some ceremony we're going to do here over the weekend. And I was just thinking about my connection to the standing people, to the tree nations over the years, over a lot of decades around the planet. So I wanted to just share a little bit. I'm just going to just let this come and share a little bit about the wonderful and amazing trees on this planet. Trees that are at risk in some situations now that I'll mention, but trees that keep coming back. The trees don't stop. The trees keep coming. The trees will keep coming, especially if we learn to back off. If we don't, that'll be our problem, not the trees. They'll continue to grow. And so I'm thinking back when I was young, long time back, and camping a lot, mostly in the hardwoods back east coast, Pennsylvania. That's when I first really started to get a sense of trees. I would camp under the trees. I would camp with the trees. Sometimes you'd wake up in the morning and there'd be all this tree fallings on you, leaves, bark, a little bit of dirt. And I always marveled at that. And of course, some of it was caused by squirrels, but some was just things naturally falling from the trees. The trees actually take care of the soil below them as well. I would pay attention to how many trees would always be near the water sources, and that's held all around the globe. It's my first really strong connection to water, I believe, was actually the trees. You want to find amazing trees, you want to find a lot of trees, go find the water. You want to find the water, go find the trees. So if you look from above, or if you're hiking and you want to find water, you try to get high, and what do you look for? You look for large groupings of plants, especially trees. So I learned that as a youngster. I carried it with me. My father helped teach me that. My father was very much into outdoors, camping. He worked really hard. So when he took a relaxing time, he'd wanted to be outside. So I learned that part of nature from him as well. As I went along, I ran into trees of all sorts. When I really started traveling in my 30s, I started to really experience some incredible trees. When I came west, I found the aspen, also called the quaking aspen, that are here. All connected, huge colonies of aspen connected in one root, one common root source. They're actually the largest living organism on the planet. Quaking aspen, beautiful trees, and in the fall, beautiful. Little different color on the top and the bottom. And so I would go into the aspen, some of the big groves that were near me in Colorado, and I would just sit for hours. I was learning from some of my Native American elders at the time, and they would tell me, go up into those trees. Don't say anything, don't think, feel those trees. And I learned pretty quickly, actually, well, over a period of months, you can hear the trees. You can actually hear the trees if you listen carefully. You can hear the birds in the trees. You can hear the insects in the trees. You can start to understand the cycle of life, the circle of life, the way that life interacts in a good, positive way. So I would go up into these aspen as often as I could. I'd go up in the winter when snow would coat them, bundle up, go into the trees, and listen to them groan as they moved in the winter, especially in a storm. I wouldn't go up if it was too bad a storm. I love nature, but I'm not foolish too often. So I was there when it was fairly mild storms, but you could hear the trees. I still hear them when I want to. I lay at night, I go into my heart, I'll journey in my spirit, and I'll be right back in those aspen. I'll be there again in the spring. I know, I'm heading up that way. When I started going to California, then I experienced the Giant Redwoods. They have such a special place in my heart. It's hard for me to even explain it. In California, you have the giant redwoods. It's the only place on the planet they exist, and the sequoias. Now, some people think they're the same. They're not. They're two distinct species. Similar, they fill a common niche, but they're in different parts of the state. The giant redwoods are up on the north coast, the hidden coast, as it's called, where I lived for a couple of years. They are, to me, the most incredible standing people, tree nations, that I've ever experienced. They're so huge that their connection to water is unique. Water cannot be pumped up through them because they are so big. They go up so high. It can only make it about halfway on the big ones, sometimes less. And so they exist in that band that's very narrow, where there's a lot of moisture in the air quite often. And actually that the water they take into the trees for the top half of the trees comes from that moisture in the air. And because of that, they also attract different birds at their different elevations and different insects. They're complete ecosystems in and of themselves, each one and as a community. I've gone and walked through these grandmothers and grandfathers and felt them. I've felt them talk to me. I felt them move. I'll sit for hours with my back up against them and just experience them, smell them, taste them. You can actually taste them in the air. They permeate the air with this amazingly wonderful taste. Feel them, all your senses. It's still my favorite place to be amongst the giant redwoods. I haven't been there for a couple of years, and I miss that. I had personal business that took me elsewhere, but I will also be getting back there. I know this coming spring or summer. I can feel it. I can feel them. They're calling me. They've taught me so much. As I learned the ecology of them and how they existed, I understood how unique they were. And so I took that with me when I was at Colorado, and I was in Central America a lot, especially Belize and Guatemala. And I'd go down and be with some student groups that were sent down. I'd be there for weeks at a time. And other times I'd go down myself to learn from my Mayan elders and my Garifuna elders. And down there you have the mangroves. The mangroves. The trees, partially in the water. The buffer between water and land. That critical piece that if they go away, the beaches erode, the coral reefs die. Erosion comes from down above because of too much clear cutting. And so they're very sacred, very special. They also primarily are in three types, which I found interesting as I worked with various indigenous people. You have the red mangroves, the white mangroves, and the black mangroves. For those of you who know anything about spirituality, indigenous culture, you'll notice that's three colors of the medicine wheel right there. Three colors. And so I thought about that a lot when I'd be in the mangroves. I'd go into the mangroves with small groups. I'd go in myself. It can be tricky. You know you're going to get wet because it's very swampy. There is some firm land, and you know you have to be careful that certain snakes and insects that are there. But what another amazing place to be. Incredible place to be. Feel that. Feel those mangroves. Feel the energy of the ocean and the coral reefs and the land. Feel the storms that come into them. Feel the way the water rises and sinks, which is part of their health regimen. They need that to stay healthy. So on many of the little islands there, the mangroves circle them or circle part of them. So every time I was in that part of the world, I always spent time in the mangroves. You could also go off the mangroves. You could snorkel or scuba or take a boat, You could row out there and get in the water and see incredible fish. Some of the largest fish I ever saw, and I believe I was told they were large, oh dear, perch, I think, enormous. They look like whales. I experienced in the water there. And then I'd come back up and there are the mangroves standing there stately, waiting for me to sit and have my lunch amongst them as I swatted at the mosquitoes and the little bugs, which I am a bug magnet when I'm in that part of the world. And I'd start to look like hamburger legs after a few days. But you learn to deal with it. You learn to eat certain things. You learn to drink certain water. You take your water from those areas, you purify it as best you can, and that's what you drink. A lot of the insects then don't recognize you as a food source. It actually works. And some of the foods. So those things actually work. Those things are more teachings from the trees. Now I'm here in Arizona once again. Here we have other amazing trees. Not far from me is Joshua Tree National Park. Another one of my special places. I've been through it since I got here, but I haven't had a chance to go immerse myself, and I'm going to do it soon. The Joshua trees, cactus, I suppose they're cactus. I have to actually check that, but I believe they are also an incredible energy source. And they survive on very, very little water. Pardon me, we don't have much water here. We're getting less all the time. Colorado River is about 2.5 hours from me here. I've been there, and I'll be going again. It's not what it used to be. I knew it from the past. All these things we have to recycle. But if we can connect to the trees, to the water, to the animals, to all those parts of nature, not if, when we reconnect. When. Many of us have never lost it. I don't think I've ever lost that connection. It's been stronger at some times at others. It's really strong now. But when we do that, we will learn to get in harmony again. And so I'm happy to continue to find new trees, new standing people, new ways to walk forward. I hope I see you on the journey. I've seen many of you on the journey already, and I hope to see a lot more. Thank you for hearing me. Be well and have a great new year with This Is Coming just before. Daho.